Chapter 6. Bear attention. The Satipatthana Sutta as a foundation and also chief factor. Today I shall discuss bear attention in Vipassana meditation, what we mean by it, and how to apply it in mindfulness meditation. The main discourse for Vipassana meditation is considered to be the discourse on the foundation of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta. The Pali words Sati means mindfulness. Patthana means the foundation that must be acquired first. It also means a leading or chief factor that has to guide, and sustain the mind in developing other required factors such as concentration and direct knowledge. Patthana can also mean placing of mindfulness rightly on an object, leading to the rise of wisdom. Mindfulness is fundamental throughout the practice, from start to finish. We try to establish mindfulness. First, we have to discover that we are not mindful. Our mind goes here and there and everywhere. The mind sometimes is thinking when we are not supposed to be thinking, or when we do not really intend to. By recognizing the fact that mindfulness is not yet present, we can make a good start in our effort to gain it. Sati means mindfulness, to be mindful of, or to be consciously aware of an object, whatever that may be. We divide objects into primary and secondary objects for technical reasons. Mindfulness means constant awareness of an object without any break. It is being aware of one object after another, arising here and now. There is no break or gap in between. For example, breathing, the ticking of the clock, the sounds coming from outside, the road, being contemplative of sensation, and so on. Any object can be a meditation object, and to be aware of it consciously is called mindfulness practice. This is the main task in the initial stage of Vipassana meditation practice. It is about being conscious of something at the present moment, being conscious of the world we live in. It is about merely registering an object perceived directly through any of the 6 doors of our senses. Experience and judgment. We do not live in the same world all the time. For example, someone is thinking about his work. Then his world at that time is his thoughts about his job. At that moment, he is not living in any other world, but in the world of thinking. He is conscious of his job. And if he were to meditate at that time, his job is the object of his meditative mind. So there are only 2 things out there, the meditative mind and the meditative object. As we have discussed before, there are 6 worlds and we do not live in the same world all the time. Professor Oliver Goldsmith of Einstein Medical School, New York, tells of a man who was operated on for his blindness. The patient had been blind since the age of 5. He was 45 when he was operated on. He had lived as a blind man for 40 years. He could not remember seeing anything during the first 5 years of his life because he was too young. He had lived for 40 years through listening, touching, smelling, tasting, and thinking. He studied, graduated, and had a job. He even got married. His wife insisted that he had the operation. The doctors also persuaded him to have the operation because they wanted to try out their newly found technology. So, both eyes were operated on. Fortunately, he regained his sight. On the first day that they removed the bandage, the surgeon stood in front of him without saying anything. He could see the surgeon, but he couldn't make anything out of what he was seeing. Only when the surgeon started to talk did he recognize him and say, "Oh, is it you?" This is because he had not lived in the seeing world for the last 40 years. He was instead living in the hearing world. So he could not make anything out of what his newly repaired eyes could see. We make many things out of what we see and hear. We create happiness as well as unhappiness. We create joy, we create agitation through what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, what we feel, and what we think. We need to be fully conscious of this. In the case of this man, for the last 40 years, consciousness never operated between his eyes and a visual object. However, between the two physical objects, namely the sounds and the ears, consciousness had been operating. So as soon as he heard the voice of the surgeon, he was able to make something out of it, identifying someone he knew. When he was having physiotherapy, he was made to walk and open doors without touching or feeling. When he started walking, even for just 1 or 2 steps, he would jump. He could not judge distance through his use of sight. This is how our mind operates when the meditation object and the meditative mind come together. The mind that operates at this time is called consciousness. The mind and consciousness are the same. The mind that is called consciousness is something that operates between two objects. The ear is a physical object. The sound is also another physical object. When they come together, then the mind functions and becomes consciousness. You become conscious of the sound. That is the height of the cognitive process. In the same way, you become conscious of visual objects. You become aware or conscious of touching, tasting, seeing, etc. This is how things operate. What we should do is to just pay bare attention to it without judging. Everything in the world is a meditation object. When we see things, we make something out of it, and what follows from there is our judgment. As we have discussed how we judge the hair on our head, when we love it, is pleasant. That is because we interpret it as mine. This is my hair. We wash it every day. Once it is cut and separated from our head, we do not bother with it or care for it anymore. Our attitude has changed. There is no more attachment to that hair. Should your hair fall into a plate of food that you are about to eat, your attitude toward the food will change. This is what is meant by judgment. If your hair happens to be in my plate, if my hair happened to be in your plate, it is even worse. Even if you know I wash my hair every day and I know you wash your hair every day, yet still we cannot bear it. As we form an opinion and make a judgment, we unconsciously decide not to experience things fully. Another thing that we often judge is the food we eat. When the food is in the pot or on the table, it looks very nice. Even before we eat, we may say, it looks delicious. Then you put the food into your mouth and chew it. After the space of 1 or 2 seconds, you will not want to see it anymore, although that is exactly what you are about to swallow. Just try taking it out and looking at it, how you will feel. Your attitude has now changed, your attitude towards the food. This is what we call judging. All our reactions are judgments. Oh, it's disgusting, we might say, or rather judge. Some may even vomit. When this happens and the food we have eaten comes out, we rush to wash it away. We do not want to see it anymore. Nevertheless, this is what we have inside our body. Therefore, this is an example of how we keep changing our attitudes. This is our reaction. We keep reacting to the object, to what we see, to what we taste, to what we smell. The same thing is true with sound. When we are expecting someone, and when we hear the sound of a car engine, we feel very happy. But when you are reading, or when you want silence, and you can hear the sound of a car, you may feel disturbed. Therefore, you make different judgments of the same sound. When we practice bare attention, we say to ourselves, hearing, hearing, and hearing. We do not even say listening. We just say hearing. We say tasting. We don't say good taste or bad taste. There is no value judgment attached to it, just bare attention. Non-judgmental nature of Vipassana meditation. In Vipassana meditation, the Buddha even goes so far as to say, wandering mind and concentrated mind are equally valuable as meditation objects. To quote the Pali passage from the Satipatthana Sutta, Sankitang va cittang, sankitang cittanti pajanati. Vikitang va cittang, vikitang cittanti pajanati. Which means, a shrunken mind and wavering mind are to be treated in the same manner by being aware of it and then comprehending its true nature. When a mind is shrunken into an object, it is totally immersed into it. This is a concentrated mind, samadhi. A wandering mind never stays in one place. It travels all over the places. The Buddha said that if you are aware of these two, a concentrated mind and a wandering mind, if you are mindful of both, just pay bare attention to it and do not judge. Do not say the wandering mind is bad or the concentrated mind is good. Make no value judgment. We know we are usually judgmental because of the unsettled minds. We often hear people saying that meditation makes mind still and calm. This implies to us that the wandering mind is the very obstacle to meditation. This is where Vipassana really differs from samatha meditation, or the calm meditation in handling restless mind. To have a concentrated mind is very important for all meditation purposes. But even though concentration is very important, you still have to treat the concentrated mind just like the wandering mind, because both are meditation objects. The presence and absence of them are object of contemplation. You have to treat each object objectively, unlike the way we treat our hair and our food, which is quite prejudiced and subjective, not objective. To see things as they are is the ultimate aim of vipassana meditation. When being prejudiced and subjective, we cannot see things as they actually are. The whole objective of Buddhism is to see dukkha, suffering, as dukkha, suffering, not to react to it. In vipassana meditation, when observing pain, it's a practice to see pain as pain, no longer reacting to it, creating agitation, impatience, frustration, or disappointment. So long we are reacting and continuously justifying our reaction, we do not yet see things as they really are. Another Pali passage from the same sutta, the Satipatthana Sutta, worthy of quoting is, Sato sangva cittang sato sang cittanti pajanati, nito sangva cittang nito sang cittanti pajanati. Meaning, an angry mind and a not angry mind may be, say, a compassionate or a loving one. These two minds are the same. Ethically speaking here, an angry mind and a compassionate mind cannot be the same. The angry mind is bad because it can create tension. It is bad for your health as well. It creates many problems. As far as the ethical aspect is concerned, we can even have different views as to whether anger is good or bad. Some say that anger makes people take you seriously, and therefore is justifiable. It is very subjective and open to personal judgment. This is when you approach the issue through ethics or sila. But the Buddha said that when you approach these two psychologically, you have to rise up above the ethical aspect of it. It may be said here, by saying what we have just said, that we do not underestimate the role of ethical morality in bhavana meditation, but rather emphasize the two different approaches at different levels. Both are indeed part of the training in the Noble Eightfold Path or middle path. Do not suppress it. Remember that in vipassana meditation there are three stages: learning, controlling, and liberating stages. You need to learn about the angry mind before you can control anger. Learning stage. At the second stage, you are able to control the angry mind, and at the third stage, you will be able to liberate your mind from anger. Liberation comes from direct knowing, and direct awareness leads to direct knowledge. In the first stage of vipassana meditation, we are developing bare attention. We are talking about this today. What you need to do is just to observe that this is an angry mind or a mind lacking in anger. A murderous thought and a loving thought are equally important as meditation objects. When a murderous thought arises, You simply note, this is murderous thought, murderous thought, murderous thought, and just be fully conscious of its presence. To be mindfully experiencing it and knowing what a murderous thought is like. Because without understanding it, we are not going to be able to get rid of this angry mind. We will not be able to control it. If we're anxious to control it, we force ourselves, don't get angry, don't get angry. We are just suppressing it, suppressing our anger, instead of accepting and trying to see it. If you say, do not get angry, it means you are suppressing it. If you are suppressing something, you will not be able to see it. But it doesn't mean that it has gone away. Anger hasn't gone away. It is there. It may pop up without your knowledge. This is what happens all the time. We normally learn about what is good and what is bad. Later, we begin imposing a golden rule on ourselves. Anger is not good. I must not be angry. Nevertheless, anger is still practically there, so it does not work that way. Therefore, what we should do is to try to accept it and see it as an angry mind with no whatsoever value judgment attached to it. Normally, we would intellectually analyze it. Loving mind is wholesome, and angry mind is unwholesome consciousness. Nevertheless, Vipassana meditation is something that will lead you to transcend both wholesome and unwholesome. Without unwholesome, you will not have wholesome. One does not exist without the other, as they belong to dualistic states, diametrically opposed to each other. They both belong to the karmic process. Nibbana is realized once the karmic process ceases to operate. In the case of the Buddha and the Arahant, there is no more wholesome or unwholesome karma. In Buddhist philosophy, the end of karma and the end of dukkha, suffering, are the same. It is Nibbana. When we say the end of karma, we do not mean just the end of unwholesome karma, but also the end of wholesome karma. What has led us to be born as human beings is wholesome karma. It is leading us to suffer in a human world. When we look at things as wholesome or unwholesome, this is at a mundane level, with two standpoints, dualistic aspects. However, the middle path, which we also call the Noble Eightfold Path of Vipassana meditation, is a very important aspect. It's something that transcends both wholesome and unwholesome. Normally, when we do good things in a mundane sense, we try to get rid of as much of the unwholesome and accumulate as much as the unwholesome. But the aim of Vipassana meditation is to get rid of both wholesome and unwholesome. That is why value judgment is not attached even to wholesome karma. Judge knowing it. The Buddha gave instruction that when the mind is concentrated, know it as a concentrated mind. When the mind is not concentrated, then know it as an unconcentrated mind. Normally, when our mind is not concentrated and it goes here and there, we tend to get disappointed and upset. People mumble, "Oh, I'm not doing well in this meditation session. My mind keeps wandering. I have a lot of disturbances and distraction." These are habitual reactions. We are conditioned to react in this way. both wholesome and unwholesome minds are conditioned. Vipassana meditation is a way out of conditioning, in Pali, sankhara, as well as being conditioned, in Pali, sankata. We are, of course, still in the process of conditioning and being conditioned, sankata and sankhara, and we are not yet out of them.